my wonderful knitting life. My name is Margaret, and this is my little space where I like to come and talk about my knitting, my crocheting, possibly painting, or any other little crafty items that I am inspired to do. I have introduced myself before on my other episodes, but just to give you a little recap, I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I also have animals, and I live on the North Shore of the St. Lawrence in Quebec, Canada. I've been here for about 9 years now, and I really enjoyed a lot of what the area has to offer. I'm originally from Ontario, but I spend the school year here, and in the summer I venture back to our family cottage and enjoy some time there. It is a Friday night. I have had very little time lately to come in and check in with you and show you my progress on my projects. It's a very busy time of year for teachers. Tomorrow night, my students are graduating from elementary school. So if they're watching, congratulations. Very exciting time for them. And there's ministry exams in our province, along with all of tidying up all of the end of year activities. So it's busier than my regular, time of year that I would find myself teaching. So it's been a while, but I was very determined not to podcast until I had something finished. That's really been a motivator for podcasting, is having finished objects to show. I'm really good at starting projects, getting them about 80% of the way finished, and then starting something else and forgetting that project. So I'm finding this is helping. So just a couple of things I wanted to mention. My logo for my channel, as well as the Cozy Cottage Hideaway, which is also a channel that I work on. Those two logos were designed and made by my youngest daughter. So thank you for that. Really wonderful contribution to the channel. She also made this picture up here. This is a diamond dot picture, and she had it framed and she gave it to me for a gift maybe a couple of birthdays or Christmases ago. I now have a ring light, which I'm using today, and hopefully that will give better video footage, and that was a gift from my sister. So a lot of support from my family in putting this channel together, which I really appreciate. Lots of input from my nephews and my other daughter, and they always tell me, Mom, don't forget to ask everybody to like and subscribe at the beginning of your videos, and I always forget. And to also hit the little bell, which is the notification bell. So if you tap that, I believe you get notified when I put up a new video. So if you are enjoying the content, thank you for joining me here, and it would be great if you could like and subscribe. All right, so for what I'm wearing, this vest, I guess you would call it, or short sleeve sweater, I made about 10 or 11 years ago. I was working in a very overheated school, and normally in Canada in the winter, I would need full sleeves, but the school was very warm, so I started knitting these short sleeve vests, so to speak. This one, I got the pattern from Drops, but I honestly don't remember which one it was. Drops have a lot of free patterns, so if you have the inspiration, go and check them out. Lots of wonderful things made by them. The yarn that I used for this is City Tweed DK from Knit Picks. It's a fabulous soft wool yarn with loads and loads of drape, and it has a little bit of a tweed to it. So a spectacular yarn. It's also in an Aran weight. So if you like a thicker yarn, you can check it out as well. And Knit Picks sometimes do have good sales, which is usually when I was purchasing from them. But the trade value of money between the US and Canada is not in favor of Canadians buying from the United States right now. So I haven't bought from them for a little while. Anyway, this sweater, I'll stand up and show you. It has a beautiful, like a herringbone cable all the way around. And in between, it's just garter, and then it's garter at the top. It has the short sleeves, and the back is nice and long. I suppose you could make it any length that you want. It's one of those garments that you can stop short, cropped, long, even jacket length if you wish. But I'm tall, so I made it fairly long. And I have gotten in the habit of wearing this for St. Patrick's Day. It's kind of my green St. Patrick's Day outfit. The one thing that's really special about this sweater are the buttons. When I was making this, one day I dropped by my mom with my kids. I think it was in the summer. And I brought my knitting bag along, and I had pretty much finished the sweater, apart from sewing in the ends and picking out some buttons. And my mother had the great big button box that I could sift through and find some buttons on the cheap that would work with my sweater. And I remember I took the girls out for a walk to one of the parks. And when I came back, the ends were sewn in and these buttons had appeared on the sweater. And that was my mom. She didn't knit as much as I do. She ended up having arthritis in her hands later on in life. And although she didn't complain, I think it made making big knitting projects really difficult. But she was absolutely fantastic for finishing things, which was wonderful because that's something I don't always feel motivated to do. These buttons, when I first saw them on the cardigan, were not something that yelled out to me that I loved them. But when I took a moment to realize where the buttons had been from, this turned into one of my absolute favorite garments. The buttons are from a sweater that my grandfather used to have. My mom's parents were in England. My grandfather eventually came to Canada when my grandmother died. But these buttons were on his grandpa cardigan, so this is now my grandpa sweater. And they're the original leather buttons. They're nicely worn and aged, and it's just really special. I'll never take them off. They mean a lot to me. So it's one of those memories that it's small, but it means a lot. And I could remember him sitting in that cardigan in his chair, smoking his pipe every night with his little Yorkshire Terrier sitting beside him. Very, very sweet memories. Anyway, I do have a finished object. I finished it last night, although we won't count the ends because I haven't done that yet, but thankfully there are not many. So that's something that won't take very long to take care of. But my finished object is my Stars of Barbro sweater. This is in my last couple of podcasts. As I was working on it, I was showing the progress. It's made from one strand of Plotulopi yarn. It was my first time using Plotulopi. It has the most fabulous smell, one of the best yarn smells ever. And I made this with the gray and the wine color. It has this wonderful star pattern at the top. The rest of it is plain knitting with a ribbed cuff at the bottom that is finished off with I-cord. And the sleeves, I haven't blocked the sleeves, although I did block the body, and I'll talk about that in a minute. They have a small pattern that's similar to the yoke with an I-cord finished end as well. So when I was knitting this, I was a little bit worried when I was making the sleeves about how much this yarn might stretch. I'd never knit with Plotulopi before, so I was very unfamiliar with how it would behave when it was soaked and blocked. And I did find that the body did grow a little bit more than I was expecting. So that's something I'll have to keep an eye on the next time I use it. So it's definitely a long sweater. The sleeves didn't grow that much. What I did really like about the blocking was how much the yarn relaxed. Because when I had knit it before, the blocking, it was kind of not stiff, because the yarn is quite soft, but it just didn't have that nice movement that I really like with the drape. And with the blocking, the yarn just really relaxed into place, and it's got a beautiful drape to it now. It's so much softer than it was. And I've really fallen in love with Plotulopi through this process. The one thing that I discovered about Plotulopi that can be a challenge is unraveling it, because you have to pull it. And if you're going to pull it, you need to hold close to the base of the yarn, or it's going to come apart. And I only needed to undo a little bit of a sleeve because I had miscalculated my decreases, and I found it a real challenge to unwind it. And also when you knit it, you compress the fibers. So when you've unwound it and then knit it again, it's really not the same as it was. So that was a little bit tricky. That was the one challenge that came along with the Plotulopi. But other than that, I loved knitting with this. I can't wait to give it a try with another garment. I haven't really thought about what that will be next. And the pattern is really well written, easy to follow. I did find that their suggestion of making sure that you go up a size to get the positive ease was not really necessary. I was originally thinking of doing the 5th size, which was the E. And then when I read on Ravelry everybody's reviews, they had said that it came out kind of big. So I went down to a D. This is kind of oversized, sweatshirt sized on me. If I was to do it again, I would probably try the C. And I think it would be just fine, not too tight. So I didn't feel that need when I got going on this to go up in size as much as was recommended, but that could also be my gauge. I tend to knit often on designer's gauge. I don't really knit tight or loose, but there are those times where I'm not getting, exactly what they're saying. But in the end, I'm really happy with this, and I'm so glad I have a finished object finally to show you. I did buy 5 plates of the wine color. I only used 4, and this is what I had left. So, and I made it longer than the designer recommended. So I feel pretty happy about that. I have 1 plate left, which I can probably use in another project as one of the colors in a color work. And I have quite a bit of the gray left. I haven't weighed this. I love kitchen scales, by the way. They're a great way to figure things out. It might be enough to put in another Stars of Barbro. My sister seemed really interested in this pattern, although I've got a few things I have to finish before I make anything for anyone else. But this definitely could be the stars in another sweater if I knit this pattern again, which I might. I really liked it. It was a very relaxing knit and not very complicated. I'm making some sock progress. I have finished my 2 yellows, heels and toes, with this green and lime yarn. And I've talked a little bit about this before. Again, it was quite a high-end yarn, coming in at $40 a skein, but I got it on sale for about $10. And I just really wanted to find out what it would be like to wear socks that had yarn at that price range, to see if it really is making a difference, or maybe it's not that different after all. I don't know. I did the heels and toes of one of the purple or the lilac. So I just have the other heel to do because I've done all the toes, and I'm really enjoying the colors on that one. And I also did one of the heels on the bluish purple version. Whoops. So I just have the other heel to do, and then those will be done. So I don't have a lot more to do on the socks, and I probably won't be wearing them anytime soon because summer is coming in now. So it'll probably be more fall where I give those a good try and see what I think of that yarn. Kind of interested to know what it's going to be like. The next project I've got to show you is my positive vibration shawl. This, as I've said before, is a wonderful, fun project. It is a project that you never ever get bored of, or at least I haven't. It is a pattern that uses a solid yarn and then a color changing yarn for all of the color work, if you want to call it. But the color work is done using short rows. And I have no idea how the designer ever figured this out. It is the most incredible pattern. It is really, really detailed. Everything is written down. All of the stitch counts that you should have at the end of each section are there, so you're able to constantly cross-check to make sure that you're heading in the right direction. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And the last time I podcasted, my chair's a little squeaky. The last time I podcasted, I was about here. And what I've done since is finish the shawl, and I am now just starting the border. And for the border, the pattern basically tells you you can do as much or as little of it as you wish. It's really up to you to how long you want your shawl to be. I will give you a look at where I'm at with that. So let me get the right side here. It's so nice on both sides, it's hard to tell. All right, so this is the beginning. This is what I showed the last time. And this is basically where I was at before. So that continued, and it's just an extravaganza of color, just incredible. So there's all of these wavy parts, and then it kind of calms down and there's more of the denim. This is kind of hard to show. It's gotten so big. All right, so right here, this is where the shawl ends and the border begins. So I'm just getting into the border here. So I just can't tell you how much I love this. It's amazing. And I now have a friend who is knitting it as well. She ordered her yarn. It's the same yarn. And she is more in the beginning, but she's really enjoying it. And I'm so glad that I can help someone and encourage them and inspire them. It's really nice to be able to do that. So this is my progress with my positive vibration shawl. I'm at the point now with the original color ball that I'm using, because I'm basically using just 2 balls of yarn. I'm using the navy and then the color changing, and I'm going to be switching probably in my next row to my other color changing yarn, because I don't want to start one of these gigantic big wavy rows and have to cut my yarn in the middle. So I think I'm just going to save this for something else. It's just little, but very pretty, and start a new one with the next section, because otherwise I'll get stuck, and I don't like ends in the middle of my rows, especially in a shawl. They tend to pop out if they're in the middle, so I'm going to avoid that. So that's my progress on the positive vibration shawl. Okay, so I have another shawl to show you. This one I've never shown before because it has been hiding at work. This is my work project. I think a lot of us have projects that are in different places. Most knitters have a sweater, a shawl, some socks, and I also have a work project, and that's what this is. And this yarn, although I didn't save the sleeves, this yarn is coming out extremely vibrant orange. It's not quite as bright as that. It's got more of a little rusty pumpkin thing going on. This yarn is a dyer that lives on the North Shore, actually in the town that I'm living in. And I thought if I ever hit 1,000 subscribers, which would be awesome, I would like to gift some of this local dyed yarn to one of my subscribers. And it's gorgeous. I can't remember the content, but it is extremely soft, and they are both a single ply. So this pattern I've knit before. This is called the Painted Pebbles Shawl. And I have to be honest with you, I'm not really following the pattern anymore. I'm just basically just using the pattern's recipe, so to speak, for their increases and decreases. And I'm kind of doing my own thing as I go with stripes, mini stripes. I do have a little bit of the eyelets here that are in the pattern. This pattern is written for 1 ball of slub and 1 regular ball, and it is designed by the Forest City Knit Girls, and they have a podcast, the Forest City Knit Girls do, and they're prolific knitters, and they have just fabulous projects, so I would recommend checking them out. But this is my project that I'll pick up for 10 minutes sometimes when I finished my lunch. Sometimes if we have a really long staff meeting and I don't need to be writing too much down, I'll pick this up as well. So it's a bit slow going. I haven't really picked it up for the last couple of weeks because I've been so busy with work, but it's there when I'm ready for it, and I need to decompress. It's fantastic for that. So that is my school knitting. And I also have some weaving that I've been working on. So, as I've mentioned before, I'm a member of the 𝐒𝐓𝐀𝐑𝐂, which is basically a 99.9% women's organization. And it's a place where it's like a co-op, and I can go and weave and work on these shared looms. And I did not know how to weave before I came to Quebec or the North Shore. This was something that's been new to me. I believe I showed these before when they had just come off the loom. When they're off the loom, we have to zigzag the edge, otherwise the weaving will just eventually kind of loosen and the threads will fall off. And then we have to sew a hem on them. So when I've woven them, I have to bring them home and do that. And sometimes I have a rather large pile sitting waiting for me, and I go weaving, but I don't finish them. It's a bit of a theme with me. But I'm working hard at finishing them. And I have a new one here to show you. So this is a new pattern that was on one of the machines. This is a beige with gold and brown, and I actually saw somebody putting in a really beautiful rusty brown the other day when I was there into the pattern that they were making, and it was turning out really, really beautiful. I'm always mesmerized by the choices that some women will make with the colors that they'll use when they weave. I would never have thought of it, and then when I look at it, it's just incredibly dynamic. I tend to go more safe, just kind of with a plain color that blends in, and then I see these incredible things that other people are weaving and wish I could do that too. So the 𝐒𝐓𝐀𝐂 has a system, because of course they have to pay, you know, their heating and for their building and all of their needs. That when you're on the tea towel machine, I think you weave 6 and 1 is for the sack. So you basically donate it so that they can sell it when they have their boutiques or their Christmas sales, and that money goes back into running the place or buying new things that are needed. And they just bought a new sewing machine and a new serger for common use. So all of the money goes back into making the organization a better place. So that's why I'm finishing these, because I need to bring my my contributions in the next time I go. I also wove a little dishcloth, and I just want to show you this because there's absolutely no end of what you can do on these machines with patterns. And this was just one of the patterns that somebody had left the instructions for stuck on the edge of the machine. So when I was there, I thought, well, I'll try that. And this is a little crease because it's been folded, but it's a little dishcloth for washing the dishes. And we do have the serger there. So what I've been doing lately when I go is I will use the serger to do that zigzag and cut, and then I don't have to worry about it unraveling when I get home. So that is really appreciated too. Okay, so what were the other couple of things I was going to share? So it was Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago, and my daughters sent me some much appreciated gifts, so I thought I would share them with you. I don't have acquisitions, but these are kind of the things that have come into my world, and they are knitting and podcasting related. So this was a gift from my youngest daughter. I had it actually on my Amazon wish list, I think it is. And that's where she had found what I was admiring on Amazon, and she sent this to me, and it's really appreciated because one of the things that has really evolved in the knitting world is finishing techniques and casting on techniques. And when I was knitting when I was a teenager and a kid, a lot of the knowledge of this wasn't out there. We started and we finished always the same way. And if that worked for your body type, great. If it didn't, oh well, that's kind of all there was. But now we have so much information, and I love having these little resource books that I can just reach out for ideas of finishing something instead of just doing that regular ribbing at the bottom. So this will give me inspiration for doing new things. So I'm very excited about that. My older daughter kind of shocked me because this turned up. I have opened it, but I'm keeping it in here to keep it safe when I'm not playing with it. She sent me a camera specifically for improving my podcasting. So although right now I'm using my cell phone, which is probably about 4 years old, it does okay, but it's not great. I'm going to learn how to use this, and it should really make a difference to the image that you guys are seeing when you watch my podcast. And I love to learn new things, so I'm really excited about all of the features that this is going to offer me, rather than just pushing an on button and off button. This gives me much more. Sorry about the squeaky chair. It doesn't usually squeak. The last thing I want to show you is something I'm going to do this summer. So unfortunately, a couple of years, as I've mentioned before, my mother passed away, and we ended up having to sell her house. And when we did have the realtor and people come to visit, the mailbox that was on her house, I had painted it. I had given it to my mom as a gift, and we kind of had it on the house when people came to visit, so they kind of expected that it would stay with the house. I should have taken it off, but anyway, it is what it is. I hope they're enjoying it. It's still there apparently, so they must be making the most of it. But what I really thought about was that I'd like one for the cottage. I really would like a nice mailbox. Right now we have this horrible metal thing that's on, and it's just not very appealing. So I bought a little mailbox, and it's wood, although the other one was a much hardier wood. Unfortunately, they don't sell that kind anymore. But one of my summer projects, I think, is going to be to sand this down and prepare it. I'm going to paint it, and then I'm going to mounted on the cottage by the front door. I'm going to make it completely different from the other one. I think that is needed to make it more rural, more cottagey. I'm thinking maybe sunflowers, nice and vibrant, marigolds maybe. We'll see what that ends up becoming. So that's maybe in a future podcast I'll show what turns up with that. I did do a little bit of adventuring on the long weekend in Canada. We have a long weekend mid to late May, and it is a Monday that's usually off for Victoria Day, which we still celebrate here. Although not so much in Quebec, but the rest of Canada definitely. And I did get a chance to go for a bike ride. It wasn't very warm, but maybe 8 degrees or so. But I took a little bit of video footage while I was out bike riding. It was of one of the bays that I'm near. And when I went weaving on the Sunday and I drove back, I decided to go down a road to a supposed town that I'd never visited, a very small little town. And I was shocked when I went down this little road to find a repatriated coal train sitting in the middle of this little town. There was nobody there. It was really quiet. And there's a small museum beside it, but it wasn't open that day. So I took a little video of the train, and I also drove around the town a little bit. There's probably no more than 80, 100 houses at the most. This town used to be a pulp and paper town, I later learned, and that's what the train's purpose was, I guess, bringing in the wood, taking out the products that were produced. The town used to be a really happening place with restaurants, movie theaters, but now it's just a very quiet little town where people make their homes, and they have this great big train in the middle of their town. So I'll add those to the end of today's video. I hope this video has given you some entertainment, maybe a little bit of inspiration for future projects. And I wish you well, and I hope you find lots of happiness in your knitting. I will try to do another podcast, but the next one might be from the family cottage in Ottawa, and maybe I'll have a guest speaker. I think my nephew wants to join me for my next podcast and bring a couple of things that he's making to share. So take care. If you enjoyed today's video, it would be great if you could like and subscribe. Bye for now.